November 5th, the day this podcast is released on. What is the significance of that date for us in Australia? Well, today, the race that stops the nation will be held, or has been held, the Melbourne Cup. But it doesn't always land on this date, as it's traditionally held on the second Tuesday of November. So what's the go with November 5th? Well, it's a date 419 years ago that a guy was caught red-handed doing something really dumb, and somehow got his name etched into history. Welcome to the cheeky tale of Guy Fawkes.
I'm upset about the horse racing reference. I'm excited to talk about Guy Fawkes.
Okay, cool. All right. Welcome to this episode 88. That was really loud. Yep.
That was really loud.
Episode 88. Back to the Future reference.
Got to go 88 episodes per hour.
It's a thin reference.
I always reference
Episode
88.
88. All the numbers of 88 must mean a Back to the Future reference.
88, of course. Our Back to the Future episode.
Yep. We've already done the Future episode. So let's what's been happening? So what's been happening, fellas?
Well, we've been out today, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah, what have we been doing? We've been suit shopping.
Yep.
Just a bunch of classy men.
Couple of funerals coming up.
It's my wedding. What we're doing.
I don't know how much personal life we're including in this preamble.
Why would we talk about the suits and then not talk about why we're doing it?
I'm surprised we talked about the suits.
All right, well, okay. Well, we've been beving a bit, so we're a little bit giggle.
We're a little giggly.
Had a delicious
You two have
lunch.
been beving. Yes, we did have a delicious
True.
lunch.
Sweaty boy John has not been having a bev.
No. I discovered I was not allergic to shellfish.
That was a good win. I'm glad we didn't kill you at lunch.
Yeah, that was a good win.
That could have taken a turn.
That could have gone pretty badly, but I'm glad it didn't. What else has been going on?
It's only been 2 weeks really since we recorded because we've
Yeah.
been doing one at a time. Not much.
I don't mind one at
Had
a
a couple
time.
of hailstorms.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
a big storm.
That was pretty hectic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have not heard proper hail as an adult, I realized. I was like, what the hell's that noise? I didn't know it was hail.
And would have been the first hail you would have had at this house.
Yeah, we've had some pea hail.
Has it got a tin roof?
Mm.
Yeah, that makes a difference
Yeah.
when there's a tin roof. It sounds,
Yep.
you're like a tile roof, it's fine.
Mm.
Duddens the noise. But when you got
Oh,
a
no,
tin,
this is tile. I don't know why I said it was tin.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
tile.
Yeah.
It was the
Never
back
mind.
patio being like,
that has a tin roof that's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
ding,
And the
ding,
shed
ding.
as
You're
well.
like, what is going on?
yeah, it's not tin out there, but it's tin on the shed. So I could hear it on the shed more than I could hear it. Yeah.
Having lived out of southeast Queensland for a while, I haven't heard hail for a bit. Townsville doesn't get a lot of hail.
I imagine not.
It's an
Well,
odd.
your wife was saying she's never heard hail
No.
like that.
No,
Yeah.
Alice doesn't get hail. Alice Springs doesn't get hail. It rains twice a year, maybe, if that. Yeah, 300 plus cloudless days a year.
That's
Yeah.
too many.
I remember a couple of years ago they had that really big one that went through Greenbank. We got a couple of friends
Oh, yeah.
that live out there and they're just sending the photos of their pool
Yeah.
with like splashes that are like coming up like
Yeah.
1.5 meters out of the pool because the hail is that large. Like,
Yeah.
just ridiculous.
Last decent sized hail that I can remember would have been when I lived in the house in Raceview, which was only for a small window of time, maybe 1998. So that's the last decent sized hail that I can remember.
Well, the ones you had here the other day, I would say that was decent size.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like maybe
10
3
cent
centimeter.
10-cent coin size.
Mm.
At the barbershop, we had like 50-cent coin
Yeah.
pieces.
That's decent. I class those, that's
Yeah.
car damaging sized hail.
Yeah. Well, every car except for the two people that parked on the cover, every car that was outside got damaged.
Mm.
And by the two people, one of them was a motorcycle and it was mine. That was because I put my helmet on, ran outside and wheeled it under the awning.
I had hail at my place, but it was pea size, so it
It's
was
small. Yeah.
not damaging at all.
Not only did it like hailed pretty heavily in Morningside, but then the wind came all at once.
The wind is what got me.
Yeah.
It was very windy. That was the strongest wind I think we've had for a long
It
time.
was wild.
It was so much wind that it was blowing stuff under the patio and it was coming out the other side.
It
Like
blew,
hail was
right.
bouncing under and coming out.
it
Yeah.
pushed enough wind through the front door that it blew a bunch of stuff off the shelf in the barbershop.
Yeah. Well, I had to put a towel underneath my front door because the wind was blowing rain under the door.
It's wild.
Crazy.
Wild.
And I think there's more to come. We're not even really in storm season here yet.
No.
Not fully, no.
Another month to go.
Yeah, cool. All right. So we moving on to the topic
Yeah,
of the
let's
show.
go.
Cool.
Guy Fawkes, as you called him.
Guy Fawkes.
Fawkes.
I think you said Fox in the
Did
intro.
I?
A lot of
it's
people
Guy
just
Fawkes.
pronounce it as Guy Fawkes.
Hmm.
Just like Ray Fiennes.
What does he find?
His name is Ralph Fiennes, but it's pronounced Ray Fiennes.
Good one, boy.
They're bevved up. They're going to laugh at all my shit
Bevved
jokes.
up.
So we're gonna look at a few things in this episode. The man,
Mhm.
Guy Fawkes,
The myth?
the incident that
Oh.
etched his name into history, and the legacy of that man.
Yeah, cool.
So
So man, myth, legend. Got
Yep.
it.
we'll start with man, incident, legend.
Good you
Can't
can't see
believe you
Sean's
said that.
face. He's mad.
Now hide behind my pop filter.
We'll start with the man. Guy Fawkes was born in 1570 in York, England, and was the second of 4 children to Edward and Edith Fawkes.
That's a while ago.
Guy's parents were regulars at the Church of England, and his mother's side remained loyal to the Catholic Church. If you remember our Henry VIII episode, there was a bit of drama between the Catholics and the newly formed Protestant Church at this time. And we will get into that later on. When Guy was 8 years old, his father passed away.
Rip.
Which we've done a lot of episodes where
People's dads died early. Yeah,
Very
because
early,
the
yeah.
average life expectancy was like 40 years.
his mother, several years later, remarried a Catholic. It was at this time, through the new extended family, or through attending St. Peter's School in York, that Guy became a Catholic. After leaving school, Guy entered the service of Anthony Brown, 1st Viscount Montagu.
They always have such fun titles.
Yeah, I tried looking that up. Sean, do you want to have a quick search of what Viscount Montagu is?
The Viscount.
Is it Viscount, is it?
Viscount, yes.
Viscount Montagu. The Viscount took a disliking to Guy and soon dismissed him. However, he was subsequently employed by Anthony Maria Brown, 2nd Viscount Montagu, which I think it said something along that he was the grandson of the 1st Viscount Montagu and succeeded him when he was just 18 years old.
Right. So middle age.
What is the
What
title?
are we talking about?
The 1st and 2nd Viscount Montagu.
So the first Viscount Montagu, Anthony Brown, an English peer during the Tudor period, was a staunch Roman Catholic, unswervingly loyal to the crown. Was employed on diplomatic missions to the Pope in Rome and Spain, and was highly esteemed for his prudence of wisdom. Apparently,
So what was his
what was
job?
his whole thing?
Yeah.
Seems to just be.
Sean, you know what it is? Your microphone's backward.
What do you mean?
There's a little gold dot on the other side, isn't there?
Yes.
This is staying in.
Loosen the bottom.
Right? This is staying in, yeah? Might just have to mute his track, but keep that in. That's gold.
It's about to get loud, I bet.
But
Oh my goodness, that sounds so much better. That has to stay in. It has to.
Yeah, that does have to stay in. There's no way I can edit that out. We're 10 minutes in.
But just that's going to explain why it sounds so different.
Yeah,
yeah.
In the cut, I want the zoom in on Sean's face right now, just the slow zoom in.
I have a lot of comments on this. Namely, get. Hey,
Are you too loud now?
no, I'm fine now. Thank you. I appreciate it. You know,
Actually,
it'd be really nice. A better microphone.
I like.
Oh, better microphone because you can't work out which side to look at.
No,
even though
just
you've used it for
better-
like 50 episodes.
Just better in general would be nice, so I could,
was-
see my iPad.
I was sitting there like, Sean sounds really thin. Like, why can't I hear
I
him?
like deep bassy.
It
Really?
sounds heaps better, doesn't it?
Yeah. No. I like the backwards microphone.
He likes
the
backwards
deep-
microphones, Sean. Yeah. Red scale, Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you were
Inversion,
hearing
Sean.
his actual voice through your headphones.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Anyway,
I'm upset about this. What is the Viscount Montagu? He seems to be employed to do diplomatic missions.
now that we can all hear you, Sean,
the
please
Pope.
tell us.
He seems to be employed to do diplomatic missions to the Pope in Rome and into Spain.
Okay.
So basically, he's like
A diplomat.
He's a diplomat between the Queen, the monarch, and the Pope for some reason.
Yep. Sure. So Guy then went on and had a stint in the military. In October of 1591, so when he was 21 years old, he sold his father's estate that he had inherited, shipped on over to Europe to fight in the 80 Years' War for Catholic Spain against the new Dutch Republic.
The 80 Years' War, or the Dutch Revolt, was an armed conflict in Habsburg in the Netherlands between disparate groups of rebels and the Spanish government. The cause of the war included reformation, centralization, excessive taxation, and the rights and privileges of the Dutch nobility and cities. And at last, that's a very confusing statement about how long it goes for.
Yeah, I don't think it's 80 years.
No,
They
it's
never
not.
are.
Well, see,
100 Years' War lasted 6.5 hours.
yeah. So Guy fought for roughly 3 years.
Guy Fawkes.
Yeah. Nice one. 1595 until the Peace of Vervins in 1598. So England wasn't technically involved in any land engagements with Spain at the time, but the two countries were still at war. Fresh in everyone's mind was the attempted Spanish invasion of England just 5 years prior. So they were also, England and Spain were also at war, but their actual engagements were on and off type of thing. They weren't like, it wasn't a constant battle going on. I think there were still some naval skirmishes that broke out.
Mainly just when they bumped into each other when they were, colonizing.
Yeah, so I think...
Hey!
well,
That wasn't a dig. That was a fact.
this would be at the time, so like the black flag was set, you'd have the English and Spanish boats just cruising out there. And
You're talking about Assassin's Creed Black Flag? The Vidya game?
Vidya game.
Guy fought under Sir William Stanley, an English Catholic veteran commander in his mid-40s. Stanley was well regarded by Elizabeth I, who was the current monarch.
Big Lizzie.
That was until he surrendered to the Spanish in 1587, and him and his troops switched sides to fight for Spain.
Espanol.
So yeah, he was a pretty good commander until he kind of flipped sides.
Yeah, he was really good until he
Yeah.
decided to be a dog.
Yeah, dog. Guy became an alferez, which I think is just Spanish for like a junior officer,
Yes, lieutenant,
Yeah.
basically.
and fought in the siege of Calais in 1956.
Calais.
Calais in 1956, and by 1603 had been recommended for captaincy. My little stuff up where I just said, I've actually got it written down as 1956, so I didn't stuff up reading it, but it's 1596. I noticed in your episode last week, when I was re-listening back, you swapped back and forth all the time between like 1895 and 1985. You were doing that quite frequently.
People get the gist.
Yeah.
1985. Springsteen. Madonna.
Maybe
before Nirvana, there was U2
and Von D.
Music still on MTV. Her two kids in high school. They tell her that she's uncool, but she still preoccupies. 1985.
Are you paying the royalties this episode now?
To which band?
'Cause we just-
SR71 or Bowling for Soup?
Yeah. Let them fight it out.
Let them fight it out.
Alright.
They're the ones that covered each other's damn song.
All right.
Dumbass.
So that year, 1603, he travelled to Spain to seek the support for a Catholic rebellion in England. It was also at this time Guy adopted the Italian version of his name, Guido.
Guido.
Guy
Love a Guido.
What is a Guido?
Well, it's Guy.
Oh, okay. You love a guy.
Why wouldn't I?
Okay, cool.
Gotta love the homies.
Yep, cool.
What?
Guy had developed an issue with the new king of England.
Explain to me what you
Okay.
think a Guido is.
It's a great name.
It's a very derogatory term.
Sure, but it's his name.
It was a nickname.
So? It's a name. All I'm hearing is racism from Sean.
I mean, racism from you.
So Guy had developed an issue with the new king of England, James I, who was actually
Jimmy.
James IV, King of Scotland.
Cool.
So, but when he came into rule England and Ireland, he became James I. Guy labelled him a heretic, thinking King James would drive all the Catholics out of England, and it seemed he just wasn't fond of Scotland either. He didn't like Scottish people. King Philip III.
Why are the Scots so hated?
I don't know.
Maybe I actually don't want to know.
No, it's not that the Scots are hated. It's that you're talking about like a region where they were vastly distinct from everybody else, and then all of a sudden it's just like, no, you can be part of the United Kingdom, but we're not really going to do that much. We're just going to say that you're part of the United Kingdom, and then when they go, okay, well, we want this, it's like, no, you can't have that. Yeah, but you said we're part of your kingdom. No, you can't have that.
Yeah,
but you said we can't have.
really.
You said we can't have our own king. Yeah, we can't have that. Okay, well, what can we have? But you have to give us all of your wool. No, that's not. Okay, you can't have lords. We're just going to keep that. It's a mess.
This ours now.
You got to remember that James I was the first king of the United Kingdom.
Yes.
The first king of England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales.
Yep.
Which is why he's James I, not James IV.
Jimmy the First.
Yeah.
But he's still
Jimmo.
he's still referenced in history as James IV.
Yes.
And James I.
Yes.
Anyway. King Philip III of Spain did receive Guy into his court politely, but he was ultimately unwilling to offer Guy any support. So what was the incident that left Guy Fawkes caught with his hand in the cookie jar?
Is this when he was trying to blow something up?
Mm-hmm. It was the Gunpowder Plot.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, I did mention earlier there were some serious religious tensions in England, and over the past decades, Roman Catholics were forced to pledge allegiance to the crown as the head of the church under threat of torture and death.
Jeez.
So there was an ongoing issue, like I said, if you remember back to our Henry VIII one, where he split.
He split him. He's like, you know what? I want to behead my wife. And they said,
I want to divorce my wife.
Oh, yeah. You think he just wanted a divorce? He wanted her head gone.
I mean, a means to an end, yes, but what he wanted was divorce.
And he ended up splitting.
I want to go pork that girl.
Yeah, well, that's what it was. He ended up splitting the Church of England and the Catholic Church and put himself as the head of the church instead of the Pope. I'm getting that right. And that caused issues further on with his successor, which was Elizabeth I, and now James I, succeeding Elizabeth. James I's stance was more moderate than Elizabeth and Henry, maybe even tolerant, stating that he would not persecute any that would be quiet and give an outward obedience to the law. So, like, don't make a fuss. I don't care. He also believed exile was a better solution than capital punishment, stating also he'd be glad to have both their bodies and heads separated from this whole island and transported beyond the seas.
Right. So off to Australia.
Well, yeah. Mainland
Probably
England.
the US. What?
Mainland Europe, sorry.
Right. Okay.
This is 200 years before.
True.
Yeah.
Was the US around at this point?
No. It wasn't a cult like that. Some Nordic people had seen it. That's about it, really.
Oh, the US was like the 1700s, wasn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
But it seemed the damage was already done by James's predecessors, and the Catholics in England didn't trust him and they wanted him out of the picture.
Mm.
Before the Gunpowder Plot, there were two other attempts. The By Plot, which two priests planned to kidnap the king, hold him in the Tower of London until he agreed to be more tolerant towards Catholics. And the second was the Main Plot. The plan was to remove the king and supplant him with his cousin, Arabella Stuart. The architects of these plots were arrested and trialed, with one man being executed for his participation. But the remainders, they were pardoned by the king while waiting on the scaffold. The two priests I mentioned earlier, they were also pretty gruesomely executed. So
Rip.
It was said that James didn't want to start his reign with bloodshed. So he made an example out of like the head of him.
Yeah.
The head leader. And then while the others were like on there with the noose around their neck, went, no, they can live. Like, what a gracious king, you know? So
What a hero.
what a hero.
I declare they should die. Maybe not.
The naming of the By Plot and the Main Plot is because they were both like trialed at the same time. The By Plot was meaning second, and then the Main Plot being
Oh, right. Okay.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
Now there is a bunch of stuff here between the two earlier failed plots and the Gunpowder, where a heap of people in England were being charged and fined with recusant. What's that word? Recusancy.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think it's recusancy, where it just means that the Catholic people who refused to acknowledge the Crown as the head of the church, and they were also being fined, like being issued weekly fines for not going to church.
Oh, okay. Right.
So I think that the recusancy is just the legal term for
Ongoing fine.
It's the Latin word, from the Latin word to refuse, was the state of those who remained loyal to the Catholic Church and refused to attend the Church of England services after England's Reformation under a Protestant king.
Right. Okay.
So
it was a term specifically about this.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
after the 1558, I nearly did it then.
Yeah.
Recusancy or resuscency acts passed in the reign of Elizabeth I, temporarily repealed into, I can't pronounce that word, remained on the statute books until 1888. They imposed punishments such as fines, property confiscation, and imprisonment on recusants, resuscitants, not sure. The suspension under Oliver Cromwell, was mainly intended to give relief to non-conforming Protestants rather than to Catholics, to whom some restrictions also applied in the 1920s.
And I was reading something like it was like £20 or whatever they were using at the time a week, which
That's a lot of money.
would be quite a bit. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
In
a
some
pretty
cases,
penny.
those adhering to Catholicism faced capital punishment. And some English and Welsh Catholics were executed in the 16th and 17th centuries, have been canonized by the Catholic Church as martyrs of the English Reformation.
I'm gonna get into a bunch of names later of people who were involved in the Gunpowder Plot. I kind of go into why they were included, but a lot of the through thread were that they were just helping Catholic priests hide
Right.
and like practice in secret and stuff like that, and taking in like Roman Catholics and like hiding them. It kind of, when I was reading it, kind of gave me the same vibe as like when you'd hear about the Jewish people in Germany, like people hiding them and stuff like that. It seemed very similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a through thread of a lot of persecution stories.
So what also grew more animosity in England at this time is that James allowed Scottish nobles to collect those fines. So Scottish people not being held in high regard, and then all of a sudden all these nobilities were coming in and taking the money of these fines, and just, again, like, yeah.
What a system.
They weren't
You're
happy.
like, hey, rich guy, can you take fines off all these poor people? Okay.
Well, a lot of the people being fined were also rich, and their like coffers were getting drained by these weekly fines because they didn't want to.
Yeah.
So in March 19, the king gave a speech where he spoke of his desire to secure peace, but only by profession of the true religion. And he reiterated that he had a desire to avoid religious persecution. But for the Catholics, the king's speech was pretty clear. Don't increase your number or strength in his kingdom.
Right.
So he had a good outward facing speech, but
Internally, it was like, hey.
The Catholics could read between the lines like, okay, we do any more, we're going to get.
Yeah.
So the Gunpowder Plot. Its main aim, kill King James, but also kill many other important targets, such as the monarch's nearest relatives, members of the Privy Council, senior judges of the English legal team, most of the Protestant aristocracy, the bishops of the Church of England, as well as members of the House of Commons. So the bishops of the Church of England were kind of like, in like government terms now, like the upper house, and then the Church and the House of Commons were like the lower house. So you've got like the higher ranking and lower ranking officials. And also, I wonder if like the Privy Council, is that like where the term privy comes from? Like, oh, you're privy to this information. It was kind of like a group of people.
Privy is also a slang term for a toilet, a private space.
Okay. Yep. Well, I think in this term, it's meaning like a group of people.
Just going to go to the privy over there.
Yeah. The king could confide in and get advice from.
Is this the same King James as the Bible?
I don't know. That's a good question. It would.
What?
Like the King James Bible.
King James version.
Like the King James. What's the word?
Edition?
Yeah.
Translation?
That's the one.
It sounds like it because this is the English.
Yeah, it seems about the right sort of. Yeah.
The King James Version of the Bible, also known as the King James Bible, is an early modern English translation of the Christian Bible for the Church of England specifically, which was commissioned in 1604 and published in 1611 by the sponsorship of King James The 6th and 1st.
There you go.
There you go.
If
So
you've
yes.
ever heard Bible verses read in like a super old-timey, like formal English, that's the King James Version.
The 80 books of the King James Version included 39 books of the Old Testament, 14 books of the Apocrypha, and the 27 books of the New Testament. Noted for its majesty of style, the King James Version has been described as one of the most important books in English culture and a driving force in the shaping of the English-speaking world. The King James Version remains the preferred translation of many Protestant Christians and is considered the only valid one by some evangelicals. It is considered one of the more important literary accomplishments of early modern England.
There you go.
There you go. Good pick up, boy.
Good input.
Well
Yeah.
done.
Great question.
Another important aim not only was to kill all those people, it was to kidnap James's daughter,
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Okay.
Once the king and the others were dead, she would be installed as the queen.
This is not Elizabeth, as we know her, Queen Elizabeth. This
No.
is Princess Elizabeth of Spain.
Right.
The
Well, there's only been 2 Queen Elizabeth, right?
Yes.
Queen Elizabeth we had a couple of years ago, and James's mother was Queen.
Yes, Queen Elizabeth I. This is Elizabeth Stuart of Bohemia.
Mhm.
She was Queen of Bohemia. Sorry,
Well, she was a Stuart too.
Not Spain. Yes, she was a Stuart.
James's sons, he had 2. Their fate was to be improvised. So I don't know if that was a nice way of, or not.
Well, it's like, do
Depending-
we kill them or do we keep them alive? We'll work that out later.
I guess it kind of depends on how they would react as well.
Mm.
Like if they were to fight, maybe get rid of them. If they were to be like, okay, whatever, they can hang around. So if this was a movie,
Yep.
this is the part where the recruitment montage would happen.
You son of a bitch.
I'm in.
We've got a heist going on.
Well done, cheeky boys. We did that well.
We've got a king's head we need to take.
Robert Catesby,
Catesby.
the brains of the operation, set out to acquire his team. Catesby had previously been involved in the Essex Rebellion against Queen Elizabeth. He was wounded and captured, but was spared execution and was fined 4,000 marks instead.
German marks?
I wasn't sure.
Okay.
Catesby reached out to Philip III asking Spain to invade England, but was denied. However, he did send Thomas Wintour as emissary. The next recruit was John Wright, who was said to be the best swordsman of his day. He was also a part of the Essex Rebellion. That's going to be a continuing theme of this Essex Rebellion.
Mark is a pretty common currency. It's actually still in use in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Right. Okay.
So, but it does come from the German word. So the mark was a currency of unit or an account in many states. It is named for the mark unit of weight. The word mark comes from the merging of 3 Germanic words Latinized in the 9th century post-classical Latin as marca, marcia, marha, or marcus.
Cool.
Unit of weight. But yes, the Deutschmark is the most common one that we're aware of pre-Euro.
You're just talking, I think, Aaron's in your shot.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Pud.
Just trying to sort out that background noise. Sorry if there's background noise in this episode.
It's called Atmosphere.
Atmospherics.
We'll wait, boy.
Well, wait. Get your feet out of the shot.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
What am I, every quarterback in the NFL?
Every American person ever.
Every person under 25?
Yeah.
So Wintour travelled to northern Belgium to again acquire about Spanish support. This is where he sought out Guy Fawkes. Why was he sought out? Well, remember, Fawkes had also asked the Spanish king to invade England.
Guy sorts.
Yeah. Nice one. Another good one. So the rumour mill got out that this other guy was asking for Spanish help. So they're like, well, let's get him. He's obviously part
He's
of the
on
course.
our team.
Yeah.
Where was he at this point?
He was fighting in that Belgium area for Spain.
Okay.
With the Dutch Revolution.
Yeah, the Dutch Revolt.
Yeah.
Which is not Belgium.
But why are they revolting?
No.
Let's not get into that. It's really it's way too complicated.
It's why I left it out.
Okay.
It's too hard.
Dutch mad.
Again, it was a Catholic Protestant thing.
Right.
We don't have oceans that border our countries, so we just fight all the time.
Yeah, it was Catholic Spain, Protestant.
Yep.
Dutch. Yeah,
It's a bedroom of people sharing that all don't like each other's opinions, that was biffing each other all the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
The growing group, which also included John Wright's brother, Christopher, they returned to England in late April of 1604. And another man, Thomas Percy, was, he was Catesby's friend and Wright's brother-in-law. He was introduced into the conspiracy. The initial meeting of the 5 conspirators took place on May 20th, 1604, most likely at the Duck and Drake Inn just off the Strand. That's a great name, right?
Duck and Drake.
The Duck and Drake.
The Strand, commonly referred to with the leading the, but formerly without known as Strand, is a major street in the city of Westminster, central London. The street, which is part of London's West End, Theatreland, runs just over 1.2 kilometres from Trafalgar Square eastwards to Temple Bar, where it becomes Fleet Street in the city of London, and is part of the A4, a main road running west to inner London.
It is also a red tile in Monopoly.
There you go.
Yep. It's also a location in Townsville.
Oh.
That's the name of the strip. It's the name of the beach in Townsville is the Strand. Yes.
Very similar locations.
I remember that from your tour you took me on.
Yes.
That's right.
The initial
JT.
I still tell people about that. That's one of the most embarrassing moments of my life.
What if we're going to see JT while we're here? Jonathan Thurston, the football player. John, you are not going to see Jonathan Thurston. Do you know how?
Welcome back to Cheeky Tales. Due to technical difficulties where we lost an hour and 10 minutes of extremely funny.
We didn't lose an hour and 10.
Well, we lost
extremely funny banter that we would never ever get
that
back.
we'll never get back. Entirely ad-libbed.
You
There was a
should have been
horse.
there. It was hilarious.
There was a horse.
Cheesy walk through with no shirt.
Yeah, with no shirt on. It was amazing.
Caused Darren to drop his pants.
We might have come up with an entire plan to restructure the Parliament of the United Kingdom.
We fixed England.
we brought it back to the
Yep. Aaron and Bree got married and divorced in preparation for their marriage in January. Anyway,
Just had to practice everything.
we had to practice everything, and because John and I are actually ordained as ministers, but as one combined
we
entity.
studied, we got our ordainsmanship in
Yes,
that hour and a
together,
half.
but together, so that we have to do the ceremony together. Anyway, after all that,
and we're going to record it as a podcast.
yes, after all that, we have to go back. So bringing it back to the Jonathan Thurston story. In that time, we met Jonathan Thurston.
He was following shirtless cheesy. I don't know why.
It's like that video of Chad Smith watching that guy drum. JT's been waiting at the door the whole time, smiling like this.
Yeah, JT actually became part of the podcast for multiple episodes, and we have lost all of that.
Yeah.
Aaron looks so stressed.
It's really difficult.
Would you like to check that?
Also, we started this last year. It's actually now 2024. This was supposed to be November 5th, 2023.
Check the cameras are recording.
You wanna check
I
the
should do
cameras?
that. Yeah. All right, Sean, ad lib, make noise.
keep
Make
going,
noise,
Sean.
continue the ad lib. I've already now taken the backstory back 12 months.
Go with the JT story.
Oh, okay.
Aaron's
the
already
JT
heard
story.
it once in the last hour and a half.
Well, of course, the JT story started with the fact that we all came up to watch the Broncos game, and it was absolutely fantastic. So, oh no, don't touch that. Okay. So,
We took a trip to Townsville for the Broncos Cowboys.
the Broncos Cowboys
while
game.
you were living in Townsville.
I was living in Townsville. It was really convenient because it's a very,
Was yours
very...
not recording?
This episode is fraught with technical failures. What we're hearing is we need a sponsor. I think we should reach out to DigiDirect as our sponsor. They can provide us with technical equipment, technical advice, quality film production as well. Anyway,
That might have been my bad. I might have forgot to hit record once I said yeah. Anyway,
so Jonathan Thurston. So we were all in Townsville to watch.
we had the tour. You took me on the tour of Townsville
Yes.
because I got up there before Aaron. Aaron was working at Beef Week.
Beef 2021.
Beef 2021.
Yes.
I saw some chaos.
Saw some chaos.
Once we all convened, we had to pick up your lovely wife.
We had to pick up my wife.
What a nightmare of logistics for you, by the way.
I had
You had to go to the airport 3 times.
Thank God I didn't have Bonnie back then. I don't
Oh yeah, no, don't worry. It's much easier when you don't have children.
it was.
Why are you surprised at that?
Yeah, good thing that Townsville just isn't that big and the airport wasn't that far away.
It's really not.
No, it's 130,000 people fit into the area of roughly 1.5 million people. So, yeah, we're like cattle up there.
Cairns is
Anyway.
like that too. The airport is like super close.
Oh,
Like,
super close, yeah. Cairns is the same. It's 120,000 people in an area for 2 million people and some cruise ships. So my wife was getting off the plane and me, John and Aaron are standing there. And earlier they'd said, oh, wouldn't it be so funny if we saw Jonathan Thurston? And I said, look, that's not going to happen. However, it's not going to happen. And next thing you know, JT is helping my wife off the plane.
Here comes JT up the airway.
Up the airway. And we were standing
in a line.
right looking down the air
And we
bridge.
can see him coming. And so Sean turns to John and goes, mate, I know it's JT, be cool. And John goes,
of course I'm not going to be cool when someone tells me to be cool.
John goes, yeah, man. It's cool.
Internally, he goes, tee.
I'm fine. And then he goes, you know what? The coolest thing I could do right now, the coolest thing possible is to give him a shuckers.
JT!
JT! It's been years and we say that so often. Oh, it's good.
So good. Look, honestly, I don't think JT would have minded.
No, I don't think he would have minded.
I think he would have gone home, had a good chuckle, went, look at those three
I don't think he
Americans."
ever thought of you again.
Nah, probably not.
The moment he walked away, he never thought of you again.
I do have contacts that could possibly get that question to him, but he's not going to remember.
No.
Contrary to any Chiquita that's listening that claims they've heard some story about how JT was rude to someone they knew in the Mad Cow in Townsville, let me tell you, everybody that's had an actual interaction with Jonathan Thurston, he's a very nice man. He's a loving husband, a good father. So anyone that says some story about how their friend was in the Mad Cow in Townsville and JT was mean to them, just shut up. You don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. They're full of crap.
Is JT the Beetlejuice of Townsville?
You say his name too many times.
Say his name
Isn't that
3
not
times.
the only time that exact scenario
No, that's
played out for
that's
you?
not even the only time. My mum and dad came to Townsville to visit, and my mum said rather, I guess ignorantly, like, well, what if we saw JT? Wouldn't that be so funny? And I said, Mum, we're not going to see JT. Honestly, like 4 minutes later, we were at the Strand, which is the area that we're talking about in England that's named after. And then JT walks straight past us into Shop 6 Pasta Bar. Hope it's still going. Delicious food. To get his takeaway and then walks back out again. My mum was gobsmacked, just speechlessly standing there like.
You also touched JT's bum.
Well, not actual JT. Let's not make me a criminal.
No, the statue outside of, what is that stadium called now?
Queensland Country Bank Stadium.
Yeah, so
Their
years
mascot
ago.
is Crackles the Pig, and I applied and was successful in my application to be Crackles the Pig.
Really?
Yeah, there's just one slight problem.
You're not in Townsville anymore?
No, I'm too tall to fit in the
Oh.
pig outfit. You have to be less than 6 foot tall. I was devastated.
Honestly, I think that would be fun to do one night.
I
Be
know.
one of the mascots at the football game.
That was the whole plan. I teed it up. I gave the guy from Queensland Country Bank like haircuts and everything, and we teed the whole thing up. He's like texting me, and he goes, "But how tall are you?" I'm like, "Oh no, I can't be Crackles." And I didn't
Sean
get
even
to be
texted
Crackles.
me like, I'm going to be Crackles.
I was so upset. Yeah, he was going to come up. Like it was a whole thing.
I would have flown up to see Sean as Crackles the Pig.
No, I'm not going to say that. Tell us how you have assaulted a statue.
I started a tradition accidentally. It was probably 2010.
Yeah.
Sean and I and one of our other friends went to a game at Suncorp. And after the game, we went outside and we're like, let's get a photo with the
King
Wally
Wally.
Lewis statue.
Mhm.
And I thought, it'd be funny if I touch his butt in the photo. So I'm like, ooh, touching his butt. And that then started a decades-long tradition of every time I'm near a statue of a sporting star that I get a photo of me touching their butt.
Except when we were in Townsville, we weren't near it. We had a trek on some e-scooters at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
That's right.
Oh, that's right. It wasn't on the game day.
Yeah, it was the night before.
That was the
wasn't
night before, and
It was
it's
the morning before.
on the other side of the river. It's a town.
it? That's right.
It was like a 10-minute e-scooter trip for you to
Yeah.
go touch his butt.
We'd also gone to the Cowboys store, the merch store, which is located in the Cowboys Leagues Club, which is in town, which is open way too late at night.
That's the giant foot photo.
That's the giant foot photo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
No.
The Cowboys merch store is located in the Cowboys Leagues Club, which is just
I remember that.
it's just in the middle of this in the city.
Yeah.
But because it's attached to the front desk of the Cowboys Leagues Club, that's the checkout. The merch store is theoretically open the whole time that the club is open, pokies and everything. So if you want a fresh jersey at 2:30 in the morning.
Before lockout?
Yeah, you're good. No lockout in Townsville, mate.
Oh, really?
No lockout shit in Townsville.
No bloody lockout in Townsville.
Bloody
None of
lockout.
that liberal city.
None of that
So-
lockout. The only thing I'm getting locked out of is my house. When I get home, my wife has locked me out.
There's a few more statues at Suncorp now. You've got to do some catching
There's
up.
so many statues.
We
at
didn't
Suncorp.
explain the giant foot. We took a photo in there and it was on like 0.5 and my foot is in the bottom of the shot and it's like 4 times the length of a normal foot because of the effect. Yeah. Anyway,
So
but
you got-
yeah, there's a lot more photo. A lot more statues I can assault.
There
Yes.
might be a like a little video short we can do for the channel.
Little vid.
Aaron just touching some statues' butts.
Touching some butts.
Touching some butts.
Love the butt.
Anyway, do you want to get into your story again?
Yeah, sure. So
Cool.
where were we at? We're at the Duck and
The Strand. Duck and Drake.
the Duck and Drake, which is just off. So later in that year in October, Robert Keyes, a desperate man, ruined and indebted, was admitted into the group as well. He was charged with taking care of Catesby's house, where gunpowder and other supplies were being stored. In December, after accidentally becoming aware of the plot, Thomas Bates, Catesby's servant, was brought into the circle. So maybe serving some tea.
Mm.
Did I just hear you're going to blow up the king? Oh,
Sorry, what did you just say?
Okay, we might need to include you.
Whoopsie doodles.
So how was this going to be? Oh, I've just spoiled the story. How was this going to be accomplished? That's a lot of people to whack.
Cut it.
The group was about to blow up the House of Lords on the reopening of Parliament. So they're going to blow up the House of Lords on the reopening of Parliament,
Well,
where all
follow us
the
on socials.
where all the high-ranking people that I mentioned earlier would be in attendance. This
You
was,
can hit us up on Cheeky Tales.
this was meant to happen in February of 1605, but it was delayed due to concerns over the plague.
Oh,
I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing at the plague.
plague's not funny. We lived
Plague's
through
not
one, eh?
funny.
There was a bit of a pandemic happening in London and in York, and there was estimated 1 in 3 people would die from the plague.
And that was the Black Death?
No.
The bubonic?
No, it is the bubonic plague, but it's the second.
Yes, it wasn't
Yeah,
the plague. When
it's
you think
not-
of the plague, you think of the, what was it, 1300s?
Yeah, the 1300s, the Black
Yeah.
Death, which was a big plague. Well, look, strictly speaking, depending on which school you went to and when you learnt about it, the story of the plague, it could have been any of them. But the 1300s Black Death was the big nasty plague that we talk about, but the 1600s plague, the second plague of the Great Plague of England was far worse. It's a whole thing. There's lots of plagues. We'll do an episode. We'll probably do an episode.
Sean just
on
knows all that information off the top of his head.
it. Yeah, I
crazy.
definitely did not look that up last November.
The Parliament opening was delayed until October 3rd. Come March 2nd,
It's October 3rd.
2 more people joined the plot.
Mean Girls, haha.
Robert Wintour and John Grant. Robert was included for obvious reasons, being the brother of Thomas Wintour, and John Grant, he was the Wintour's brother-in-law, and he was also involved in the earlier mentioned Essex Rebellion. Also in March, the group purchased the lease to the Undercroft.
The Undercroft.
The Undercroft.
Great name.
It's not necessarily one building that's named the Undercroft.
Mm.
It's kind of like a name for a basement. So
It's a cellar. Yeah.
it's a cellar.
Right. Okay.
But this Undercroft becomes known as
The
the
Undercroft.
Undercroft because
Right.
of this story.
Okay.
So the Palace of Westminster in the early 17th century was a hodgepodge of buildings clustered around old medieval chambers, chapels, and halls.
Right. Now, Westminster, that's the Westminster Palace. That's where Big Ben is, right?
Yes, that is
Cool.
correct. So when
Yeah. I do know London pretty well.
if you picture Big Ben, you would picture Big Ben on one side and a
Yeah.
bunch of spiky towers.
Yeah,
That
that's
is-
Westminster Palace. Yeah.
That is the Palace
Yeah.
of Westminster.
That is where Parliament is, but it's not.
Not
and it was
Westminster.
never somebody's direct home.
No, not
Yeah.
Westminster Abbey, as you mistakenly thought it was.
I don't recall that. I
It
don't
actually
recall that.
contained the first iteration of Westminster Abbey.
There you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So I
first
was
time it
actually correct.
The first
I just-
time they built Westminster Abbey was there, and then when they built the they built the next iteration of Westminster Abbey.
Yeah.
It was then at its current location.
The current Westminster Palace is like one large building,
Mm.
whereas back in the early 17th
It was
century,
multiple put together, wasn't it?
it was like a
Yeah,
town
it's like
block.
a little town hall. Yeah,
Yeah, a town block of
Yeah,
different
like a
buildings.
town square. I think you
So merchants,
describe it.
lawyers, and others lived and worked in various lodgings,
Mm.
shops, and taverns within its precinct.
Oh.
And the undercrofts were
Mm.
very common and used for storing food and firewood.
Mm.
Wynard's building
Kind of sat underneath it, didn't it?
No, it sat at a right angle to the House of Lords.
Damn it. Right, I'm going to stop being a prick.
And it was also alongside a passageway which led to the Parliament stairs as well as the River Thames.
Which, as we all know, is pronounced Thames.
Thames.
Nobody's ever stuffed that up.
And
No.
the Undercroft is definitely 77 feet by 24 feet 4 inches and 10 feet high.
It's insane that he just knows that.
You have previously mispronounced
The Thames.
Thames as
I don't
Thames,
recall
haven't
that.
you?
You're the
Don't recall
only
that.
person in this podcast that has ever mispronounced
The
the
thumb is.
River Thames.
So Wynard's Undercroft was on the ground floor and it was directly under the first floor, which was the House of Lords, which was the Parliament House. And it may have been the palace's medieval kitchen at one point. It was, however, the perfect place for the group's plan, and it was the Undercroft they had just leased.
And for all of you that are curious, this is the point where we realized that we'd stopped recording.
Yeah, it was right now, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah. So
Are we still recording?
Yeah.
We've caught up.
Sean and I are going to sound real dumb again.
Yeah. For a while there, we were really smart.
The group
I can
began.
now scroll my Wikipedia page again.
The group began loading the Undercroft with barrels of gunpowder. Catesby's house was on the other side of the Thames, and under the cover of night, they would move barrels across the river by boat, probably in something more canoe-sized than boat. Like you'd think boats a bit bigger.
Big catamaran.
20 barrels were carted first, and 16 more were moved over on July 20th. July 28th, the threat of the plague once again delayed the opening of Parliament until Tuesday, the 5th of November, which is funny because this 5th of November is also a Tuesday.
It is indeed a Tuesday.
Come late August, some of the gunpowder had decayed, which I didn't know was a thing.
Neither did I.
Gunpowder could decay. It's probably not as refined as the gunpowder we have these days, is it?
Has
Probably
it got organic material in it?
Yeah, Flint.
Right.
Oh, we got wet as well.
It's probably more like black powder back then, wouldn't it have been? Or,
Yeah.
Mm.
Mostly.
So yeah, it had decayed. So more barrels were brought in, as well as some firewood to conceal the barrels. 3 more conspirators were included: Ambrose Ruwood, Everard Digby, and Francis Tresham. Details of the plots were finalised in late October. Guy was to be left to light the fuse on the gunpowder and hightail it out of there across the Thames. He would then leave for Europe to explain the events to European Catholic powers. So all the other groups, all the other members, like there was a revolt organised to kidnap the king's daughter. The others they were going to leave the area, and it was only really Guy that was left to actually do any
Detonation.
work. He was going to light the fuse and
Leg it.
several of the conspirators were concerned what was going to happen to fellow Catholics that were meant to be present on opening day. There was some discussion to slightly injure the young Earl of Audrell, so he would be absent that day. Like, we don't want him there, so let's I don't know, knock him out or give him a black eye and he can stay home. There was also plans to warn several people who were brought up in the meeting, but that was dismissed by Catesby. It was actually said it was like he kind of like mocked the even notion of warning other people. On October 26, while eating a meal, a servant appeared to Lord Monteagle with a letter. This is what it said.
Monteagle.
My lord,
Monteagle.
out of the love I bear to some of your friends, I have a care of your preservation. Therefore, I would advise you, as you tender your life, to devise some excuse to shift your attendance at this Parliament, for God and man hath occurred to punish the wickedness of this time. And think not slightly of this advertisement, but retire yourself into your country where you may expect the event in safety. For though there be no appearance of any stir, yet I say they shall receive a terrible blow this Parliament, and yet they shall not see who hurts them. This council is not to be condemned because it may do you good and can do you no harm. For the danger is past as soon as you have burnt the letter, and I hope God will give you the grace to make good use of it, to whose holy protection I commend you.
If I got that letter, I'd just be like, what the hell does this say?
Mm-hmm.
Monteagle quickly left for Whitehall and showed the letter to Cecil, Earl of Salisbury. The Earl of Salisbury informed the Earl of Worcester. I said that properly. It's not Worcester sauce. But anyway. And then it was showed to Henry Howard, 1st Earl of Northampton. So it went up. I guess that's maybe the chain.
Going up the chain, yeah.
Chain of command.
All going around.
But the news was kept from the king, who was hunting in Cambridgeshire. Monteagle's servant had family tied to the Wright brothers and sent them a message to Catesby.
The Wright brothers?
Yeah, John.
The plane guys?
No. Was it Thomas and what?
Sean hated that.
Yeah. There was a couple of brothers, and I think it was John Wright and Thomas Wright were the brothers. Anyway, so yeah, they got a message back to Catesby about the betrayal. Like someone's spoken out of turn. And yeah. The letter was shown to the king on the 1st of November upon arrival back in London from his hunting trip. He immediately focused on the word blow and suspected the use of fire and powder. Cecil had already suspected the plot, but kind of just let the king take the credit for uncovering the plan. He was kind of like already on it and just went, it's the king.
You know what, king? You can have this one.
Yeah, you're so clever. You got this one.
What a smart king.
Yeah. The search was not conducted immediately. Instead, Cecil waited a few days, likely to avoid alarming the conspirators and perhaps to give them a chance to proceed with their plans, which would allow him to catch them red-handed. As the date of Parliament's opening drew closer, Cecil instructed Sir Thomas Knevet.
Oh, that's hard to say.
Knevet, a trusted justice of the peace. Knevet, a trusted justice of the peace, to carry out a comprehensive inspection of the Parliament buildings. The search would focus on the lower chambers and the storage areas, particularly in the basements and cellars beneath the House of Lords. As the conspirators prepared to leave the area, Guy was given a pocket watch to time the fuse and some other items. On the night of November 4, Sir Thomas Knevet and his men entered the cellars beneath the House of Lords. In one cellar, they found Guy Fawkes, dressed as a servant, guarding a large pile of wood. When questioned, Fawkes claimed that the firewood belonged to his master, Thomas Percy. This aroused Knevet's suspicions, as Percy was known for his Catholic sympathies.
Sympathies?
Thank you. And connections. Fawkes remained calm and composed, but Knevet ordered a more thorough inspection of the cellar, and this led to the shocking discovery of 36 barrels of gunpowder hidden beneath the firewood and other supplies.
Chick, boom.
So when we say barrels, I'm assuming they're like 20-gallon, like the big...
Yeah, big barrels.
Big wine barrels. Yeah, big wine barrels. So that's
they could also be like littler ones.
Yeah, maybe. But I feel like that's a
smaller
lot of gunpowder. Like that's going to make a big boom. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Knevet immediately arrested Fawkes. The pocket watch was found on his person, as well as slow matches, touchwood, and a lantern. The lantern can be found in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. So that is still on display.
That's pretty cool.
In Oxford. When asked his name, Fawkes gave the false name of John Johnson, and he claimed that he was the servant of Thomas Percy. His calm demeanour, even when confronted with accusations of plotting to kill the king, initially impressed his captors. Fawkes later explained that he intended to blow you Scotch beggars back to your native mountains as an insult directed at the king and his Scottish supporters. Fawkes was taken into custody, and the news of his capture quickly reached King James and his ministers. Fawkes remained defiant during the first stages of his interrogation, refusing to reveal the name of his co-conspirators or any further details about the plot. However, the seriousness of the conspiracy and the threat it posed led authorities to use extreme measures to extract a confession out of him. Fawkes was taken to the Tower of London, where King James personally authorised the use of torture to obtain the information.
Yeah.
Torture was, in fact...
That made him listen to Nickelback.
illegal in England, except by royal order. But
Look at this photograph. I'll tell you everything.
So yeah, torture was illegal, except by royal order. But in this case, the severity of the plot justified it in the king's eyes.
Just to be honest, Nickelback's okay.
Yeah,
they're not that bad.
Fawkes was subjected to brutal methods, likely including the rack, which is the one that stretches the body out over a wheel. No, it's just
straight. You just get stretched.
Yeah,
you
but
might get stretched over a
I think
wheel.
your legs and arms are tired. And
Yeah. It's stretching your body
If
out.
you got a crook back, it might
There's probably a moment where it feels great.
great and then
Yeah.
not great. The torture had its intended effect. Over several days of agonizing questioning, Fawkes eventually revealed his true identity and confessed his role in the plot. He also disclosed the names of his fellow conspirators. With this information, authorities were able to track down and arrest most of the conspirators, though Catesby and some others died in a shootout while resisting capture. After a brief trial, Fawkes and the remaining plotters were found guilty of treason.
Mm.
They were sentenced to the traditional punishment for traitors, hanging, drawing, and quartering, a method intended to serve as a public deterrent. On January 31st, 1606, Fawkes was brought to the gallows, but just before his execution, he jumped off the scaffold, breaking his neck and thus avoiding the full horrors of punishment. So he just kind of took matters into his own hands and went, I'm not waiting for you to drop it out. Yoink.
Just took a swan dive off
Yep.
the. Pretty smart, actually. Good on him.
And now quickly, let's cover the legacy of Guy Fawkes.
Mm.
So I don't know if you, when we say the name Guy Fawkes, what do you picture? Do you picture anything?
I know there's some like fireworks thing.
What I'm trying to get at is that you ever seen the white mask with like the pencil
Yeah.
mustache?
Oh, yeah.
That's a Guy Fawkes mask.
Mm.
So the discovery of the gunpowder plot had profound effects on England. It led to increased anti-Catholic sentiment, stricter laws against Catholics, and harsh penalties for any perceived act of treason. Parliament declared November 5th as a national day of thanksgiving for the king's survival, which evolved into Guy Fawkes Night or Bonfire Night, which is celebrated by bonfires, fireworks, and the burning of effigies of Fawkes to symbolise the foiling of the plot.
Right.
In later years, Guy Fawkes became a symbol of rebellion against oppressive authority, and this is where you might recognise the mask.
Yeah.
So I think, was it in a movie? They had the Guy
Yeah, it
Fawkes
was in
mask?
V for Vendetta.
There you go. I think that's where it got its
That's
modern
where
day popularity.
Most people associate it with
Yeah.
the movie
Mm.
V for Vendetta, and then those hackers from Anonymous,
Oh yeah,
or every shit nerd you've ever met that claims to be a hacker from
it's a
Anonymous.
symbol of rebellion.
Rebellion by Catholics against Protestants.
Yep.
So it's rebellious Catholics adhering to thousands of years old tradition.
So after reading all this, and knowing obviously Australia being a colony of England, I kind of looked it up and went, did Australia ever do Bonfire Night?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. I don't know if you're aware of this. Australia 100% did Bonfire Night or Cracker Night. So I rang my dad and I'm like, Dad, I'm reading up on Guy Fawkes. He goes, oh yeah, the bloke that tried to blow up the House of Lords. I'm like, all right. He
Yeah.
immediately knew.
Yeah.
I'm like, did you do like
Guy
Guy
Fawkes
Fawkes Night? He's like, yeah, it was great. We
Yeah.
loved it.
My dad said he did too when
Yeah.
we asked him today.
And
Dad
so
talks about it all the time.
I
Yeah.
rang Kirsty's dad as well. He said the same thing. He said they'd save up their money week to week, go to the shop, buy firecrackers, put them away for Cracker Night.
Mm.
Dad was like, yeah, we'd go out, we'd have fires, we'd make scarecrows and burn them. So like obviously not realizing what the burning of the scarecrow was for, because he called it scarecrow. And he's like, oh, we'd get skyrockets, put them in like tallies and shoot them up in the air. We'd have wheelbarrows and have big bonfires. And I'm like, okay, because I didn't know this was a thing. When did it stop? And he's like, oh, I don't know. He's like, when were firecrackers banned in Australia? 1972, 74. 1974 they were banned.
Yeah. There you
I
go.
think it came into legislation about 82. But yeah, up until then, Australia would have a bonfire night.
Mm.
And I don't know, do you think it's weird that we no longer do it just because it just seems we no longer do it because fireworks were banned? Like,
Well,
there's
if
still,
that's like the key thing that you do.
but you
like-
could still do bonfires, couldn't you? Or
I think it's
Well,
also
even then, it's hard to get the ability to do a bonfire.
with
Agreed.
it's been a really long time. It's been hundreds of years since Guy Fawkes tried to block the House of Lords.
416.
Yeah, that's a long time.
So it lasted a long time.
Yeah,
really.
it lasted a long time, but how long do you reckon the significance of that actually lasted? Like, particularly in the colonies, of people actually understanding
in the colonies, yeah.
of people understanding who Guy Fawkes was, what it represented, and then also, like, are you even?
It lasted because as soon as I mentioned Guy Fawkes, Dad knew exactly who I was talking about. He was the guy that tried to blow up the king in the House of
Yeah.
Parliament.
My
Yeah, but
mum-
like ask your kids.
Yeah.
Oh, they wouldn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
My mum always talks about Guy Fawkes Night, but I guarantee if we asked her, I asked her to tell me anything about him attempting to blow up the House of Lords, she wouldn't have a friggin' idea what I'm talking about.
Well, my dad did, but like I didn't know this was a thing, and I found it fascinating that this used to be a thing that we just don't do anymore. So you say like the significance in the colonies. If you remember the other week, I did a shout out to Luke from the guy.
Our Welsh mate.
Our Welsh mate.
He's not the one that calls me a slaphead, is he?
No, that's Reese, our English
Reese.
mate.
Okay.
Reese.
Shout out Reese.
Reese is another one. Reese, get on there. Leave a comment. Tell us if you still celebrate.
Show us what you're doing for Guy Fawkes night.
Exactly,
if anything.
please. I asked Luke, the Welsh fella, if he did it, and he's like, "Oh, I hate it. I hate the fireworks. It's upset my dog. I really don't want to celebrate the survival of some rich prick anyway." So he knew exactly what it was. And then he's like, "Here's an article from 2016 after the US election, which is happening now, where on Guy Fawkes night, they burn effigies of Donald Trump because apparently the Welsh hate Donald Trump."
Yep.
So like, it's still a thing overseas. Like, I know, I just find it fascinating that
it's
it kind of like dead stopped in Australia.
Yeah, but I mean, it was probably only like Australians love celebrating stuff that lets them do silly stuff.
True.
So as soon as they couldn't do the silly bit, they're like, why are we going to do the rest of this?
I don't know why fireworks were banned. I don't know if there was a serious injury or anything like that.
I guarantee there was a serious injury.
I'd say
Every year in the Northern Territory, they have a public holiday. They have Territory Day. And it's the one day a year where fireworks are legal in the Northern Territory.
Yes. Kirsty's dad also mentioned that.
Yeah, and it's pretty dangerous. In particular, certain groups just shoot fireworks at each other. You know, it's pretty dangerous. You let anyone buy a bunch of fireworks and they're going to shoot them at each other.
Your favourite player from the Buccaneers blew half his hand off, didn't
Wasn't my favourite player, but Jason Pierre-Paul, he blew off a finger or two.
Yep.
Yeah, he was a patriot when he did that.
Messing around with fireworks.
Yep. And then he still played in the NFL like weeks later with just a nub.
Yeah, he played for the Bucks in the Super Bowl year. So.
That is the history of Guy Fawkes and Guy Fawkes night, which is today, November 5th.
So go out and
light a fire.
Some.
Yeah. Go out and illegally acquire some fire. No, Cheeky Tao says no to illegally acquiring fireworks.
You just started by saying legally and then stopped yourself and said, no, we say no to illegal.
No, I meant to say illegally.
Oh, right.
So go out and, we say no to illegally
light a match
acquiring.
for your homie, Guy Fawkes. There you go.
Speaking of fireworks, I was going through a safety document at work the other day. And it was, we have two safety documents. One is restricted items and banned items. Fireworks are on the banned items.
Well, yeah.
For work.
Of course. Why wouldn't they be? They're an explosive.
Firearms are on the restricted.
Oh, there you go.
So, Stanley knives, banned.
Yeah, right.
So,
okay.
Yeah, anyway, I just referenced the fireworks. So, yeah, that is the history of Guy Fawkes.
Good one.
Around 1859 was when the anti-Catholic rhetoric of Guy Fawkes night started to thin out.
Okay.
And it mainly became
a fun
just
night.
a social celebration after the observance of the 5th of November Act was repealed in 1859. Eventually, the violence was dealt with, and by the 20th century, Guy Fawkes Day had become an enjoyable social commemoration.
I would assume it's like the UK's July 4th.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
July 4th, they go out and have fun with celebrating independence.
Yes.
It's the UK's like, we celebrate the survival of the king with.
Yeah. Well, good story, boy.
Thanks, boy.
I guess we'll do the socials thing now. We're going to have some supplementary imagery up on our socials, which we do every time. And it's also the place you can go to have your own say on what you think of the story.
Reese, get on there. Let us know.
And tell us how you celebrate Guy Fawkes Day. That's at Cheeky Tales Pod on Facebook and Instagram. I think we're going to give up on Twitter.
X.
Whatever. We're giving it up. Who cares?
No engagement.
No engagement. And it's really hard to do the post because of the limit. Yeah. So Twitter, bye-bye. RIP.
RIP.
But yeah.
We'll take up threads instead.
Facebook and Instagram. Bebo. Hit us up. Hit us up on Mastodon.
Find us on the Cheeky Tales Tinder page.
Find us on eToro. We don't actually trade anything. We just post.
Yeah.
Pinterest.
LinkedIn.
Be on Pinterest.
Join our LinkedIn where we talk about what we learn about B2B marketing through doing the podcast.
Yeah, you can find us on seek.com where you can apply for the job, but there isn't actually a job. It's just community engagement.
No, you can apply to be a Chiquito and we will hire you as... No, we won't hire you.
We won't hire you. It's an unpaid
position.
internship.
No
volunteer
paperwork.
as a Chiquito.
Anyway, we will be back in a fortnight's time. It's my turn. Should I give a little teaser?
Yes, please.
I have got the episode written.
Mm.
It's got a boat in it. It's a key part of the story.
I'm out.
Love the boats lately. Every second episode of yours has been
It's been a lot of boat-heavy episodes, hasn't
marine based. Yeah.
it? All right, well,
And with that, Chiquitos, good night.
Sean's chucking it, so good night.